One of the biggest things we have to navigate through in relationships is this phenomenon called projection. So projection is whenever we feel someone else is to blame for the way that we're feeling, and it happens very easily. We all know what that feels like. So our partner does something, we feel, it's like, you're this, you're that, you're doing this, you're doing that. We blame the other person for our feelings. It's very difficult to actually get out of it. It takes a lot of capacity to reflect inwards. So there's two sides we need to look at this. One is if you're doing the projecting, and the other is if you've been projected on. So if you're finding yourself very angry and annoyed with your partner, then the best thing to do is to notice how you feel and to be able to express that. When you do this, I feel like this and this and this, and to really find an embodied feeling. A lot of times we say I feel such and such, but it's still kind of got blame in it, I feel abused. That's still saying the other person is doing something to me. But if you go for an embodied feeling, I feel collapsed in my chest, I feel a lot of fear in my belly, then you start moving from the projection back into yourself. It's much easier for the other person to hear you, and it's a much more powerful way to resolve and move through it. But the other part to look at is, what do we do when our partner is actually projecting onto us? So when somebody's there in front of you saying, you're like this, you're like that, you do this, it's all your fault, you make me feel like this, you. It can feel really violent to have that finger pointing at you, that blame. And yet the person is just in their moment of projection. To them, it feels like it's the truth. So generally when somebody does that to us, we either want to defend ourselves, no I don't, no I didn't, or we want to attack, yeah but you do this and you do that. So defense and attack are like common reactions to projection. But of course they tend to not really help. They lead to more conflict, they lead to more aggression, and it actually can really escalate. So what can you do? It can feel really invasive and violent to have that kind of energy come at you. So one of the best solutions is to imagine you can protect yourself with a mirror. Like if you have just a mirror here protecting your heart instead of a wall. Now what would that mirror look like in communication? It would mean, instead of defending or attacking, simply mirroring back what the other person says, almost word for word. So they say, you always do this and this and this, and you just simply say, what I hear you saying is that I always do this and this and this. Yeah, and you're such and what I'm hearing you saying is that I'm such a. And so by mirroring in this way, you are listening to them because they're trying to be heard, but you are neither letting it in and letting it wound you, nor pushing it back at them. You're just letting it be mirrored back. It's one of the most effective ways to work with projection. In fact, in my experience of watching communication, it seems to be really the only way that works. I don't always remember to do it, but I certainly realize when I don't, because we escalate into a lot more conflict when we don't do this. So if you can really tune into that, maybe even think back to the last time somebody was attacking, blaming, projecting onto you, how did you respond? Did you defend yourself? No, I don't do this, I don't do that. Did you attack back? Well, you do it like this and you do that. Or did you mirror? Chances are you did one of the first two. Well, you can just reimagine that situation and imagine mirroring it back. What I'm hearing you say is that I'm really lazy and I don't do any of the housework. Yeah, and you da-da-da-da. And what I'm hearing you say is, so that you begin to practice the art of mirroring. And then it can start to become your automatic response instead of the other ones. That you notice when somebody's projecting onto you and you think, oh, let me mirror that back. It's not making them right, it's not making them wrong, it's not making you right or wrong. It's just holding space for that that's coming. And it helps to discharge the energy that's coming from the other person. Once they've been heard and once it's started to discharge, you'll reach a place where the charge has gone, so that they'll go from, yeah, you're like this and you're like that, and then when you hear them, okay, yeah, and you do this, and you'll see them discharge. Once you feel you're in a more baseline place, there's a good place to then go into a further discussion if you need it. So that's just a little advice on projection. It's advice for me too. May I always remember that one. And it can really help us to avoid a lot of unnecessary conflict.